Leak-free, solvent-welded pipe connection is an important part of the pipe installation process. The way plastic pipe and fittings are solvent-welded can impact the success or failure of the entire piping system. Thus, proper solvent welding techniques are necessary and require professional care and attention like other components of the piping system. Weld-On takes pride in training over 100,000 contractors in the proper solvent welding techniques. Before starting the installation, make sure you are prepared with all the right materials for the job. The proper primer, solvent cement, and if necessary, cleaner, the right size applicator, pipe preparation tools, and enough manpower in your joining crew for the size of the job. Start by cutting the pipe as square as possible, using a power saw, miter box saw, or plastic tubing cutter. Check the end of the pipe to make sure it has been cut squarely. Remove the burrs or raised beads on the outside diameter of the pipe by using a file, external deburring tool, or power beveling tool that will produce a 3/32 inch 10 to 15 degree chamfer or bevel. Remove inside diameter burrs or raised beads with an internal deburring tool, knife, or power beveling tool. Now with a clean, dry rag, remove any dirt, grease, shavings, or moisture from inside and outside the pipe, pipe bell, or fitting socket. All surfaces to be joined must be free of foreign material. This includes any chemical, paint, coatings, or any other residue from around the job site. Weld-On offers cleaning products for removing these types of materials. A good dry fit occurs when the pipe enters the fitting at least 1/3 to 2/3 of the way into the socket without being forced. This dry fit should not be too tight or loose enough to jiggle. A net fit occurs when the pipe bottoms into the fitting socket with no interference. Measure the fitting socket length and mark this distance on the pipe outer diameter to indicate where the primer and solvent cement are to be applied. Add a couple of inches to this distance and make a second check mark on the pipe, as the primer and solvent cement will remove the first mark. Choose the proper applicator that will work best for the job. Daubers are recommended for small diameter pipe, whereas a roller or swab is recommended for use on large diameter pipe, 4 inches and above. The applicator size should be approximately 1/2 the pipe diameter. Before starting the installation, wear proper safety glasses to protect your eyes and nitrile gloves to protect your hands. Weld-On solvent cements and primers are flammable and should not be stored or used near sparks, heat, flame, or other sources of ignition. It is also not recommended that equipment causing sparks or flames, such as welding torches, be used in the work area where piping systems are being solvent welded. The application of primer is an extremely important step in creating a first-class, long-lasting joint. Primer softens the joining surfaces and prepares them for fusion. Without primer, the surface fusion is often weak and a joint may fail. Apply primer on a scrap piece of pipe and check the penetration or softening ability of the primer by scraping a few thousandths of an inch. This will help gauge the proper amount of primer and rotational force to be applied to the joining surfaces during actual installation. Now apply primer. Tilt the fitting socket downward, vigorously working the primer into the fitting socket. Keep the surface and applicator wet until the surface has been softened. Remove any puddles. In the same manner, vigorously apply the primer to the end of the pipe, equal to the depth of the fitting socket. Then apply a second application of primer to the fitting socket. Do not allow primer to run down the inside of the fitting or pipe. In the case of belled end pipe, do not allow the primer to run past the bell socket into the pipe. For each application, rotate the applicator at least 10 times to ensure proper primer coating. Shake the can of solvent cement thoroughly before use. While joining surfaces are still wet from primer application, immediately apply the appropriate Weld-On solvent cement in a full, even layer onto the pipe outside diameter, equal to the depth of the fitting socket. Apply a medium layer of solvent cement to the fitting socket. Avoid puddling.